Shabbat shalom, everybody. Rob Shmuel with you with our 10-minute Torah for this week for Parsha Yitro, Jethro. Yep. So, as you can see, I'm in a little different location here. Same shirt and same yarmulke. Can you see it? There we go. Okay. So, before we start with the Parsha. As you know, I like to give shout outs every now and then, actually a lot, because I believe that people need, not necessarily need, but like recognition. As a species, we humans tend to berate people or condemn people or castigate. It makes us feel better because there's somebody below us. Of course, what we want to do is evolve beyond that with our own feelings about ourselves. But people like to be acknowledged and recognized. And I think that when somebody does something positive, they should be. Now, you've heard me go on about my daughter, okay? And I'm very proud of her. She's a wonderful person. She is learning Hebrew. She has learned Hebrew. She can speak as well as the people in the regular congregation. I've talked about my wife, my Rebbitzin, my partner, my love interest, my soulmate, who is so involved in my life, who is involved in my professional life too as a rabbi. And, I'm just so proud of her. But, I really haven't mentioned, and it's really, and I really need to be taken to task about this. I haven't really talked about my son. Now, I have two sons. One of them is the older son, lives in Arizona. He is a teacher, very proud of him. He's put himself through college, raised three wonderful kids. One of them got married. We now have a great granddaughter. But the other son, he's like my partner. He's my buddy. He is very involved in Judaism. Matthew is, and Moshe, and we talk about things. I bounce ideas off of him. He keeps me, he keeps me straight and narrow a lot. I depend on him for that. And it's great. We have some great conversations. In fact, people have even said, wow, we'd love to be at your place when you guys start talking about stuff because we really get into it. And it's wonderful. We have slightly different political views. And of course, I don't talk about mine. I don't believe in it. And because I want to respect everybody and I want to respect everybody's opinion because it's all valid. But we have some pretty heavy conversations and then we just laugh about it and we move on. And it's great having somebody like that in my life. So I just wanted to do a shout out and recognize that. Okay, so this week, Yitro, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, I'm Orthodox, right? I'm Ashkenazi. Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law. So he shows up and he says, Moses, wow, everybody's heard, the whole world has heard what you did with you and what you and God did to the Egyptians to get the people, get Israel out of bondage. And, I'm convinced. And a lot of our sages believe that at this point, this is when Jethro actually became a Jew, or what we would call today a Jew, when he accepted the idea of the one true God, Hashem, who is master of the universe and is the ultimate source of our lives and our existence. Before that, he was, and the Torah describes him as Kohen Midian, as a Midianite priest. And what was he a priest of? Well, probably some paganry or some idolatry. And some people say that he was a seeker. Okay, he was looking for truth. He was exploring various religious and spiritual paths and avenues. And he finally came upon, his son-in-law, Moses, came upon this one true, monotheism, one true God, and he was overjoyed. So he brings Moses's wife, who and sons. Moses had sent them away because of what was about to happen, and he didn't want them being in danger. And Jethro brings him there. Okay. So when Jethro shows up, he looks at Moses and, my joke, he goes, what's going on here? What's this line of people? What is the Who or the Beatles getting back together again? And Moses is like, no, I'm the prophet. I have a direct communication with Hashem. And people come to me to learn Torah, more on that in a minute, or to adjudicate or to rule on various discrepancies and issues, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so discussed this before, but it bears repeating. I know what you're thinking. There was no Torah yet. God has yet to give Moses the Ten Commandments. Okay, so what is Torah? Is Torah a book? Is it tablets with the commandments inscribed? No. Torah is God's teaching. God's teaching has been around ever since there was God. Abraham instinctively knew Torah. He knew a lot of these commandments, which is why God approached him in the first place. He knew them instinctively. He was a very righteous person. Abraham knew that there would, God's a wood, God's a steel, forces in nature, they don't control anything. They're the result of control. He recognized that. And that's why God approached him. And that's why it was so important, for Isaac, Yitzchak, and Jacob, Yaakov, to get that legacy, to get that birthright, because they themselves, Ishmael was just not, he was a warrior. He was a hunter. So was Esau. Esau was a pagan. He didn't appreciate, what was about to come, as evidenced by, Jacob, like, okay, sell me your birthright and I'll give you some land. He goes, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to die. What good is the birthright if I'm dead? Okay. So this cavalier attitude, showed that these people were not worthy, but Jacob wanted it so badly, he was willing to deceive. Okay. So Jethro recognizes this. I mean, he sees this. He sees what happened. And he's like, Moses, this is it. I want to be part of it. Now, did Jethro come before the giving of the Ten Commandments or after? Now, you would think, well, it follows that in the Torah. So, yeah, so Jethro appears prior to giving the Ten Commandments. Some sages disagree. They say, no, he didn't come before, he came after, because at the end of the chapter, and Mo and Jethro went on his way. See, so he came and he went, and that was it. Other people say, Moses invited him to stay with him, to accompany them to the promised land, being that he now had this revelation. And Jethro said, no, I'm going back to Midian. I need to bring this message to others. That's kind of, the midrash, the discussion of outside, looking, filling in the blanks, if you will. So personally, and some sages, I follow the sages that say unless there's a real good indication, the Torah is in chronological order. Yeah, sometimes it jumps around, okay, like the manna, right? And Israel fed off the manna for 40 years. That's kind of like a preview of things to come. 40 years, wait a minute, we're not there yet. That's right, we're not. But it is a preview. So obviously, it was written after that whole, incident of the spies, which was God's last straw. Okay, you got to stay out here until you all die off. You're not ready to take the land. So Jethro comes, and his contribution is you're going to wear yourself out, and you're going to be of no use to anybody, because regardless, as a prophet, you're still human, and you are going to tire, and you're going to be exhausted. And quite frankly, these people deserve, fresh rulings. So he said, delegate. Modern business concept, right? Multiple layers of management. Delegate. And Moses is like, what do you mean? He goes, well, appoint, find men that, can't be bribed, that are righteous, that have enough money, that, don't lack for anything. So the only reason why they're going to judge is because they want to, not because, they want something from it. So the wisest men became the judges of thousands, and then hundreds, and less than, and then finally you had the Beit Din, the court of three. So what was really good about this is that you had the wisest people judging the hardest, and then less harder, you had lesser people, well, not less, but you know what I mean. They maybe not had the full wisdom that some of the other people had. Okay. Now consider that all of this happens right before, in the flow of the Torah, we get the Ten Commandments, and the big ones, the beginning of our legacy, and then the rest of the commandments follow. So it's kind of like, okay, if these men have to judge, they need some type of background. They need some type of knowledge base, right? And here it is. Hence the flow. Jethro says delegate. Moses says, okay. goes up and gets the first of the commandments, the 10 declarations. Then the others come, and now these people have a base to work on, hence the flow of the Torah. So there it is. Consider that and hope you all are doing well. Shabbat Shalom in advance. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad that I can, be a little bit of an inspiration and an influence. Okay. Thanks again. Shabbat Shalom.